We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Sherry Haug, and I am the Elementary Director for Science Olympiad. With us today, we have Katie Fatala. She is the Senior Program Director for the Nora Project. We also have Courtney Adams on our phone call today, and she's also with the Nora Project. We're going to talk a little bit about how we have worked universal design in with some of our Science Olympiad activities in the past, and hope you walk away today with some great ideas on how to use these ideas in your own classroom. So with that said, go ahead, Katie.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Fatala. Thank you, Sherry. So a little bit about the Nora Project. We are a nonprofit that provides social emotional learning resources, and our mission is to promote disability inclusion by empowering educators and engaging students and communities. So for us, that looks like providing curricular resources to teachers to implement in their classrooms that help them teach their students about friendship skills, empathy, best practices for inclusion, and disability studies. We teach about disability as diversity. We want people to understand that it is a natural and expected part of the human condition. And we, as I said, provide curriculum around that. So we have programs for students in preschool through high school. And you can learn more about our organization at thenoraproject.ngo. And you can also reach out to myself or Courtney at any time to answer questions about that. Go for it, Sherry. You're muted.
That on purpose. One thing I did not mention was that Katrina is going to be running the chat, so please feel free to put questions in either to the Nora Project or to Science Olympiad, either one of us, as we go along. And we are recording this session as well. So back to Science Olympiad. So it looks like we have one person that has said that they're a little bit familiar with Science Olympiad, but I'll just give a really quick, brief outline of what Science Olympiad is for those of you who might be on and are not familiar. So Science Olympiad was started back in the 1980s. We have been around and doing mostly middle school and high school competitions. We are hands-on science learning competitions, but as well as we have an elementary arm, which is what I oversee for grades K through 6. And in that arm, I provide teacher training. I do before and after school training. I go in and work with students. I even do a little bit of work with pre-service students. And it's all about getting the students and the teachers comfortable with hands-on science activities in the classroom, after school, etc. So like I said, founded in 1984. And again, working with mostly the teachers and sometimes the pre-service teachers. Sorry. My head's not clear. I heard Katie say something earlier about her hair. It's not clear. My head's not clear. So
it's one of those days.
It is one of those days.
So one of the big things that we're going to talk about today is universal design. And I want to give you a basis of understanding of that, and feel free to continue your learning around this concept after this webinar. But generally speaking, universal design is a framework that helps us think about how we put together events, environments, and experiences. And it can be used to influence the way that we plan learning experiences for our students, but it can also be used more broadly for how we design buildings and exhibits, how we plan infrastructure in our communities. It really can be extended to any kind of design thinking. The most important thing to understand about universal design is when we're applying that line of thinking, we're removing barriers to allow the most diverse range of people to thrive in an environment. So I want you to just pause to think about what that means when we think about the most diverse range of people. That means considering all possibilities for who might be utilizing a space or participating in an activity. So that might force us to take into account culture, language preferences, ability status, and so many other factors that can impact the way that a person functions in a space or in a learning environment. So in this particular case, we're going to be focusing on how to make things accessible from an ability standpoint, as that's sort of the basis of the work of the Nora Project and the unique features of the ESO for All curriculum. And when we apply the principles of universal design, what we are doing is communicating a strong message that all are welcome, and that no one's needs are a burden. So we allow people to engage without having to ask for accommodations, which makes that experience more organic and certainly more comfortable for everyone involved. So a little bit more just to give you a better sense of what is universal design. So let's look at some of these images on the screen. Each of them represents an accommodation that was originally designed to support individuals with disabilities. But I'd invite you to think about how these tools enrich all of our experiences in a variety of spaces. So for example, curb cuts accommodate wheelchair users, of course, but they also are a great tool for people who are pushing strollers or toting luggage. Closed captioning was designed for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but they're a great tool when you're trying to watch something and you can't turn the volume up, like when I'm watching my Instagram stories in bed and my husband gets mad at me for turning the volume up. Captions are really helpful there. When we provide a range of ways to engage with content using different senses, that is also an element of universal design. So if you think about museums, when we have ways to touch and see and hear and experience different things, that is a universal design accommodation. And accessible entrances, of course, are designed for people with mobility challenges, but they come in really handy when your hands are full. So all of this is to say that when we plan events using universal design as a framework, we create spaces and environments that are accessible and that are more enjoyable for everyone involved. Everybody benefits when we design for accessibility. And so the same is true when we apply this thinking to learning experiences. And the ESO for All curriculum provides a range of really specific, but also broad accommodations to ensure that all learners have exactly what they need to be successful when they're doing those activities. And by providing that, learners with and without disabilities all benefit. So when we think about the combination of universal design and STEM, we have to be aware of our planning, very intentional and very creative when we are putting these events together. While we can anticipate needs and implement solutions and strategies that are universally beneficial to all of our participants, for example, we can provide content in a variety of mediums, we can use visuals, we can offer lots of thinking and processing time, visual timers, we've got a lot of ideas. We also want to be sure that when we're planning these activities, we know the students or the participants that are going to be engaging in those activities so that we can really plan for their specific needs. And again, that ESO for All curriculum provides specific suggestions for a wide range of needs of learners to support specific accommodations for students. And then the other thing that we need to think about when we're planning activities that take universal design into account is that we want to keep lines of communication wide open during an event. So facilitators should definitely share and openly share about those universal accommodations that are being put in place so everyone knows what is available and what is provided. So for example, if you are offering closed captioning, if you are offering ASL interpretation, if you are offering a transcript in advance of what's going to be said, let your participants know that even if you're not sure if they'll want it. It sets the tone and it lets people know that you want them to feel supported, which, and it should also make them feel more confident and more comfortable advocating for their needs should they want or need additional support. You want to be sure, of course, to be clear about who to speak with or where to find additional information or support during an event so that people can access it independently and they don't have to feel as if they're creating some kind of burden by asking for their needs to be met.
So let's talk a little bit about what the Elementary Science Olympiad for All book is. No matter what school, we always have students and parents and teachers for that matter, who will always benefit from the type of accessibilities and modifications that we've included in our book. I was just saying, I was in a meeting earlier and I was just saying, I know that I'm somebody who needs to see something. So if my own two children would say to me, Mom, can I read something to you? I always say to them, yeah, you can read it to me, but I need to have it placed in front of me. And I think that we forget about those simple accommodations that we all need and we know about ourselves, and we need to become more comfortable with using those for our students. So we partnered with the Nora Project after receiving a grant from the Double Good Foundation. And what we did was we picked 10 of our most popular signature events and worked into about 100 different accommodations into each of the events. So we have things like sounds of music, and written in there would be 100 different accommodations for students on how to do that event, so all students would be able to participate in the event. So we know that just because we've written this event with accommodations in mind, additionally we've given you the regular directions so that this event can be for the entire school. We want all students to be able to participate. So we have academic, we have communication, functional, health, motor, social and emotional, and vision and hearing accommodations for those 10 events.
What we at the Nora Project really love about this curriculum is that it really makes it possible for STEM to be truly inclusive without inadvertently otherizing any particular students. Again, as I've said, when we plan for accessibility, it communicates a sense that everyone belongs, that everyone is welcome. It makes every child able to engage, or every participant able to engage on a level playing field. The idea behind universal design is to remove the barriers to success, and this curriculum gives really specific strategies for how to do that. We want to give our facilitators the tools to be able to create an environment where participants don't have to ask for every single accommodation that they need, preparing things in advance so that we can avoid as much as possible a situation where a child has to ask for something, or a participant has to ask for something that we could have anticipated in advance. So we can't, of course, plan for everything, but we can do our best to create a situation where everybody has what they need from the get-go. And this curriculum does a beautiful job of providing those tools.
So back in January, maybe it was February, we partnered with the Nora Project and found a school in the western suburbs of Chicago that the Nora Project was already in and working in. We identified a couple teachers that were using their curriculum with their students and did a virtual fun night. We were able to use the grant money and send home supplies with students and into their families, so that they and their families were able to do 2 of our events. We did Gummy Bear Long Jump and we did Straw Tower. And in addition to that, we also sent the worksheet pages from the ESO for All book so that the parents were able to use some of the accommodations for some of the events. So we've done a really quick video here for those of you who are not familiar with Gummy Bear Long Jump. We're going to listen to the video so that you know what the event would look like in a normal situation, and then we're going to talk about some of the accommodations that we're able to do with that event.
Hi, this is Riley, and she's going to help me explain Gummy Bear Long Jump. So Gummy Bear Long Jump is one of our Elementary Science Olympiad most popular events. You need a target, and in this case, I have this great big target, but if you can't have something that's that size and shape, you can easily go online and find something to just print it out. It can even be in black and white. It does not have to be in color. You need rubber bands. In this case, I like to have rubber bands with different attributes. So I have thick rubber bands and thin rubber bands. I also like to make sure they're different colors. So when I work with younger students, I can call out the different colors. You need a measuring tool. You need some sort of start line, and in this case, we're just going to use some blue tape that we've placed on the floor, some painter's tape that makes it obvious that that's the start line. You need a bag of gummy bears, and you want to leave these out for a couple days before you do the event so that they dry really well. Brand new, fresh gummy bears are very moist and gummy, as the name implies, and warm hands will just make them sticky and they do not shoot well. Additionally, you want to buy some really small individual size bags, because if you can promise students a bag of small gummy bears at the end, if they don't eat the ones that they are flinging all over the floor and touching, you will have a better chance of them not eating them as you're working. And lastly, you're going to need some catapults. In this case, I'm lucky enough to work with some wooden catapults that we put together, but your catapults can be made out of spoons and rubber bands. They can be made out of tongue depressors. You can have your students make any sort of catapult that you would like. So in this case, we have two small, thin rubber bands that are wrapped around the flinging arm of the catapult. You can see there's additionally a third thick rubber band that's just for us to put on kind of quickly in a minute so you can see the difference. But Riley's going to take her catapult. She's going to put it on the blue line. She's going to put the gummy bear in the opening, the holder of the gummy bear, and pull that arm back and fling her gummy bear. Each time she flings, she's going to measure from the place that the gummy bear ended to the center of the target. But for sake of time, we're just going to have her go ahead and show you about her second throw. So what she's done now is she's put the thicker rubber band around the flinging arm. And the reason she's done that is she's going to add a little bit more force. But in adding force, she's got to think in her head, okay, I don't want to pull this arm back as far because it'll really shoot this time. And again, I don't know if I've said this, but your students are going to be working with a partner, and they're going to work together and have these conversations. So she's going to pull that arm back, release, hold that bear in there, hold that bear in there, and release it. And it's a better throw. So the object, obviously, is to get your bear closest to the center of the target. So the student pair that is able to do that gets it the closest to the center, is going to be the winner of the event, or the closest to in doing what the expectations of the event are. Thanks so much.
So I had the opportunity to not only do this, with the accommodations in February, but with a group of students, but I also had an opportunity to do this event last week with a group of college students. And we talked a lot about accommodations the entire time. And one of the things we talked about was just the size of the target alone was an accommodation, right? So I could be working with the smaller target, I could be working with the larger target. At one point, a group of students decided they would sit in a chair because it was going to be easier for them than working on the floor. And lo and behold, before you knew it, all of the students wanted to be in the chair to throw the gummy bear. So we're truly talking about how to make this activity more meaningful and easier for all students. It could be as simple as, it is a loud, chaotic event. So maybe we just need to put headphones on students so that the noise level isn't as high. Another thing that we talked about was, while I was working with the group of students, I had a small group of, interestingly enough, all boys, who just kind of went off on their own, and they were shooting on their own. And sometimes the students just need additional time and additional practice. Again, the size of the rubber bands are going to be important, because sometimes little fingers can't pick up the really thin rubber bands. They can only work with the thick rubber bands. And on the other end, you might have students that are working at a higher level, and so bringing in a protractor and talking about the angle of the throwing arm is an important thing that students can have as well. When we did this with our online version, we were lucky enough to be able to close caption the entire thing. And I think we're going to try to show you a little bit of that ability. Is that true, Katie? Are we going to try to do a little bit of that? I'll just let you keep on working on that and see if that happens. But not only is that going to be helpful for some of the hearing impaired students, but it can be helpful for any students, again, if it becomes chaos in a classroom. Additionally, the size of the gummy bears. So you saw that I had that tiny little package. Those are available at almost every holiday anymore. But sometimes the smaller gummy bears are almost easier to hold on the flinging, accepting part, like the mouth of the spoon or the receiver on the catapult, than one of the bigger gummy bears. And they even make gummy bears larger than that. Maybe you don't want to use tape, or the blue tape is better than the masking tape. So it's all about those different accommodations that can occur. We're going to go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to add, I did toggle on captions. So we're using Google Slides, which does have built-in, excuse me, automatic captioning for the speaker. So you'll notice that I'm the one presenting the slides. It's hearing me, so it will project my my speech in the captions. PowerPoint has a similar feature. In fact, if you are using Office 365 tools, all of them have accessibility features built in that are pretty robust. But what I wanted to add, Sherry, is that I think what we really want to do is, by providing these accommodations, we're normalizing the fact that breaking down these barriers so that everyone can participate at a level that is appropriate to them. That's really important. It communicates a strong message to students and to teachers alike. So the fact that the ESO for All curriculum basically does the work for you, it tells you exactly how to begin to figure out those accommodations, is a really helpful tool in making moves toward this universal design approach.
And what's beautiful about the accommodations is that they are not specific to just those events. So for instance, in our monster match event, we encourage people to use glue in order to outline the monsters so that students with vision disability could, feel them. And that is something that could be done in just about any in any art project type thing, anything where the students needed to see. You could outline letters, you could outline a lot of different things. So even though these accommodations are written specifically for those events, those accommodations can also be used for other events and opportunities as well, math, science, across the board.
Cross-curricular, just generally anytime in your classroom or at home with your own children.
That's exactly right. So we're going to talk a little bit about Straw Tower really, really quick. And I'm hoping that we're gonna see a little bit of your participation at this point. So Straw Tower is another one of our events, and basically the parents or the partner groups are going to get a group of 25 straws. They're going to get a length of masking tape, a tennis ball, and some sort of measuring device. And we talk about a lot about these events being competitive, but that's not necessary to the events. And sometimes that can be the accommodation, is that it's just a fun hands-on activity. I think, as I was telling a group of students a couple of weeks ago, I think that we as adults are the ones that seem to put the competitive nature into a lot of these events. The students just really want to build a really cool tower and some things like that. So they're going to take those straws, they're going to use masking tape, and they're going to build the strongest tower that they can that has a receiver on the top that will hold a tennis ball for 3 seconds without falling over, and then they're going to measure to see how tall it is. So what we're looking for, and we're hoping people will put in the chat, is what are some things that you can think of off the top of your head, how this event could be made with more accommodations? What are some modifications that we could do so that all students could participate in this event?
And it might be helpful for you to think about students that you currently serve, who you know a lot about them, like what might pose a challenge for them to begin that activity, to stay engaged in that activity, to manipulate the materials in that activity. All of those things help us to elevate potential need for accommodations.
So for instance, I know that sometimes when I'm using a tape measure at home, that the kind that flings back, and that when my husband is measuring or doing something, that we've used those in our events before, and students have a really difficult time because they're constantly, winding back up. So we find that these measuring tapes that are more cloth, for probably more of a seamstress type activity, work a lot better for students because it's not flipping up, it's not rewinding, it's not doing all those things that would cause problems for our students. So that would be a simple accommodation right there. Another accommodation, if we're not throwing any out in Zoom, please come on, help me out just a little bit. All these straws are black, right? And so pre-cut tape, yes, thank you so much. Extra tape. If you use different color straws as well, that's going to help students who just need to see that the different parts of the tower. If you just look at this one part and you've got a partner and it's not as easy to communicate, hey, put masking tape between the two black straws. Oh my gosh, there's lots of black straws here. So if we've got the pink straw and the green straw, that's going to help a little bit as well. So yeah, that's a great idea. Extra tape, pictures of towers in real life to look at.
Totally.
Go ahead.
Think about executive functioning, right? If you have students that struggle with multi-step directions, how can you create visual directions to support them? If sort of time management or transitions are challenging, implementing timers or warnings or whatever works for your particular students. And just keeping in mind, of course, that when there is an accommodation that might be supportive of more than just one student, make it available for all students. Multicolored straws in this situation isn't going to hurt anyone, right? It's only going to be helpful to all kids to have that option. But pre-cut tape may be an option that they can choose, or maybe they, want more control over their tape. So offering choice is a good way to work these in as well.
So working with a group of students, one of the students had just torn an ACL, and so she's the one that wanted to be in the chair. And it was interesting to me how quickly everybody wanted to be in the chair. I assumed that all the students would want to be on the floor, rolling around on the floor, flinging those gummy bears. And yet, as long as, to Katie's point, we say that these are choices that everyone has, then when the choices are open to everyone, it's always surprising to me how many students take those choices. So if we don't have any other ideas, we can move
forward. So this experience, this collaboration between our two organizations to bring the concepts of universal design to the ESO activities, we learned that, as I said, accommodations are beneficial to everyone. When we design for accessibility, everyone benefits. So, and when we design for disability, everyone benefits. So we, really want to communicate to all of you how this concept is applicable to the STEM setting, but it is also applicable to everything that you do in your classroom. Accommodations benefit everyone, and when we make them available, not only do we take away the stigma of only this person needs this thing, but we also make things potentially more accessible for more students that we maybe didn't realize would benefit. We also learned that proactive planning creates a welcoming environment. When we know our participants, when we include universal accommodations that we know just generally are probably going to be helpful to someone, it creates an environment where we say, you are welcome, we value your participation, and we want you to feel that your needs are met. And then as we worked through this event and as we were reflecting on it afterward, we were thinking about the name ESO for All for this curriculum. And we, as a team, were having a discussion about how it's implied, right? Like elementary science Olympiad is for all kids. This tool, this curriculum, lays out very specifically how to support students with specific needs, but we want you to understand that STEM activities and math and reading and writing and all of the other aspects of school are for all kids. And we can make them accessible to all kids by providing accommodations. So as we said, this can apply across content areas. If you know your students and you can identify potential barriers to their participation in any given subject, you can prepare accommodations that will be supportive of them. And then if you're not sure what to do, if you don't have like a step-by-step guide that is provided for you, like the ESO for All curriculum, collaborate with experts in your building. Talk to your students. Find out what would be supportive and helpful for them to engage in whatever activity or learning opportunity you are creating. Another thing to just always bear in mind that even if you're not sure if it's going to be used, have it ready. So for example, when I was teaching, I would almost always have at the ready one of the Sarah Ward classic tools, the get ready, do, done chart. Multicolored, it lays out a task with multiple steps, and I knew that there would be at least one kid in my class, no matter who I was teaching, that would benefit from a very clear organization of what do I need to prepare, what do I have to do, and how will I know when I'm finished. We have some resources that we'll share with you, and I think Katrina will make that available. It's in the chat, there you go. Access to a handout with additional resources and ideas. And of course, Sherry and I and Courtney and Katrina are all a resource to you. Our contact information is here for Sherry and I. And we would love to support you in your work as you make STEM and all other things accessible to all students and all learners in your school.